The observation deck of Station Carveth hummed with the low-frequency vibrations that the Viraki found soothing, but Sergeant Illyra Voss had never quite adjusted to the sensation. It felt like standing inside a giant tuning fork. She pressed her palms against the transparent aluminum viewport, watching the binary stars paint the station's hull in alternating gold and crimson. "Sergeant Voss, your presence is requested in Nursery Sector 7. The translator in her ear rendered the clicking, growling speech of the Viraki into flat, emotionless English. Illyra turned to see Administrator Krellick standing in the doorway, her massive frame nearly filling the entrance. The Viraki resembled the predators of ancient Earth, feline grace merged with reptilian armor plating, standing nearly 8 feet tall on digitigrade legs. "Is everything all right?" Illyra asked, already moving toward the door. "Define all right," Krellick replied, her tail swishing in what Illyra had learned meant amusement. The cubs refused to continue their quantum mathematics instruction. "They demand the human." Illyra suppressed a smile. 3 months ago, she'd been assigned to Carveth as part of the Terran Viraki Cultural Exchange Program, the first human to live among the warrior species since first contact. The adult Viraki treated her with cautious respect, almost reverence ever since they'd learned about humanity's evolutionary path. A species that had clawed its way from prey animal to apex predator, that had conquered its own world before reaching for the stars, fascinated them endlessly. But the cubs had adopted her as a curiosity, a playmate, and apparently a reason to abandon their studies. The nursery sector was a vast, climate-controlled cavern carved into the asteroid station. Artificial trees with purple foliage stretched toward UV lamps that mimicked the Viraki homeworld sun. As Illyra entered, she counted 15 cubs, ranging from the equivalent of 5 to 10 human years, supposed to be arranged in study pods. Instead, they were wrestling, climbing, and generally creating chaos. "Sergeant Voss!" The shout came from Cub Tarek, the most energetic of the group. He bounded toward her on all fours, his adult fangs still too large for his juvenile face, giving him a comical appearance. "You came. Tell us more Earth stories." "Tarek, you're supposed to be learning quantum field theory," Illyra said, trying to sound stern. "Boring," another cub yelled from somewhere in the artificial canopy. Their instructor, an elderly Viraki named Scholar Mintar, approached with the slow gait of exhaustion. "Sergeant, I apologize for the interruption to your duties, but they have been unmanageable since you visited yesterday." Illyra had made the mistake of sharing human fairy tales during a cultural presentation. The cubs had sat entranced as she spoke of wolves and grandmothers, of bears and forest cottages. Stories that should have been mundane to a species of natural predators had instead captivated them completely. "Perhaps," Mintar continued, "you could use their interest in human culture to encourage scholarly focus." An idea formed in Illyra's mind. She walked to the center of the nursery and sat cross-legged on the soft ground covering. "All right, cubs. Gather around." The effect was immediate. 15 young Viraki materialized from various hiding spots, forming a semicircle around her, their eyes golden with vertical pupils fixed on her with absolute attention. "I'll tell you an Earth story," Illyra said, "but first you need to know something about humans." "What? What?" Tarek practically vibrated with excitement. "Humans have a weapon. A sound we make that's more powerful than any claw or fang." The cubs leaned forward. Even Mintar seemed interested. "We call it laughter." "Laughter?" Tarek attempted, his vocal structure mangling the word. "Laughter," Illyra corrected. "It's a sound we make when something brings us joy, when something is absurd or unexpected or wonderful. And here's the secret. Laughter is contagious. When one human laughs, others start laughing too, even if they don't know why." "Demonstrate," Mintar requested, his scholarly curiosity piqued. Illyra thought about how to explain humor to alien cubs. Then she simply started laughing, a genuine warm sound that echoed through the artificial cavern. It felt good, releasing tension she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. The cubs stared, ears flat, completely baffled. Tarek was the first to respond. He opened his mouth and attempted to replicate the sound, producing something between a cough and a chirp. "Ka-ka-ka," another cub tried, creating a sound like stones grinding together. "Ka-ka-ka." Soon the entire nursery filled with cubs attempting human laughter, each producing wildly different interpretations. The cacophony should have been terrible, But something about their earnest attempts, their determination to master this strange human weapon, struck Elira as genuinely hilarious. She laughed harder. "Why?" Tarek demanded, stopping mid-imitation. "Why do you make this sound now?" "Because," Elira managed between gasps. "You're all trying so hard to laugh that it's actually funny." The cubs looked at each other in confusion. Then Tarek's eyes widened with understanding. "The attempt to create joy." "Creates joy?" "Exactly." Tarek tried again, and this time something in his throat clicked differently. "Ha ha ha." It wasn't quite human, but it was closer. Close enough that another cub joined in, then another. The sound changed, evolved, became something unique. Not human laughter, not Vraki growling, but something in between. Within minutes, the entire den echoed with joyful noise. Cubs who had been fighting were now laughing together. Cubs who had been hiding were laughing with their clutchmates. Even Scholar Mintar's shoulders shook with his own version of the sound. Administrator Krelix appeared in the doorway, her hand on the plasma weapon at her hip, clearly ready to address an emergency. Instead, she found her nursery full of cubs rolling on the ground, producing sounds that her species had never made in 10,000 years of civilization. "What," she asked slowly, "is happening?" "Cultural exchange," Elira replied, grinning. "They're learning laughter." Krelix watched for a long moment. Then her own mouth opened in an approximation of a human smile, an expression the Vraki had adopted since meeting humans, though it looked fierce with all those teeth. "Perhaps," she said, "humanity's greatest weapon isn't your persistence or your pack bonding or your ability to endure. Perhaps it's this." Tarek bounded up to Elira, his golden eyes bright. "Teach us more. Teach us everything about joy sounds." "First," Elira said, standing and brushing purple vegetation from her uniform, "quantum mathematics." The groans were universal across species, apparently. "But," she continued, holding up a finger, "Scholar Mintar, what if we made it a game? Whoever solves the next equation correctly gets to hear another Earth story, and stories, I promise you, will give you many reasons to laugh." The cubs scrambled back to their study pods with unprecedented enthusiasm. Mintar looked at Elira with something approaching wonder. "In 3 months you have accomplished what we could not in 3 years. You have made them want to learn." As the lesson proceeded, punctuated now by bursts of that new, hybrid laughter sound whenever someone succeeded or made an amusing mistake, Elira realized something profound. The Vraki had spent years studying human resilience, human tactics, human survival instincts. But they had overlooked the simplest truth. Humanity had survived not despite joy, but because of it. The ability to find humor in darkness, to laugh in the face of the void, to create light where none existed, that was the real human superpower. And now in a nursery on an asteroid station 700 light-years from Earth, that gift was spreading. Tarek solved his equation first and bounced over to claim his prize. "Story, story!" "All right," Elira said, settling back down as the other cubs abandoned their work to listen. There once was a human who could spin straw into gold. The laughter that followed echoed through the station's corridors, a sound that had never existed in this corner of space before a human brought it. And in that moment, Sergeant Elira Voss understood her true mission on Karveth, not to show the Vraki how humans survived, but to show them how humans lived. One laugh at a time,